The issue of academy, CEO, is the FA, and you know, when we mean the FA, I mean you are the national office. You can't be monitoring everything. This includes the provincial and regional structures. Is there a system of regulating this issue of academies and clear monitoring?
I must thank the former TD, Mr. Neltov. He has designed a document. The document was presented to the technical committee, and I think if it was not of COVID, we should be starting with the implementation. And I'm happy because FIFA has also taken few of the academies in this country and to make a case study about them so that we can model and say this is what we need when we say it's an academy, because most often people say we start academies and they think it's only about the kids playing. They forget that there are many issues which needs to be considered. The diet of players, the studies of players, and where the players stay, their medical side, because sometimes if I open my academy and I'm not even, you still find owners of academies which forces these kids to play carrying injuries, and that result in lifetime injuries where they cannot play. So it starts there. So we value the academies that much, and part of the issues which we'll be doing is to regulate. But again, it's not only on SAFA to say this is a proper academy. Parents need to start taking responsibility. You cannot sit very from the Eastern Cape and hear that there is an academy in Joburg, and without setting a foot at that academy, you send a kid there. Because most kids are dropouts, they are not at school. Because a parent was told there is a football academy, he sent a child, and if the child does not succeed in terms of football, or he gets injury which stops him, prevents him from continuing with football, the life of that child is finished, because then he is not there academically. So we have the requirements of an academy, and we have an ideal academy which will also cater for the academic needs, the dietary needs, and all these things which has to do with football. We have that, and I think from January we need to start rolling it out, inviting people to come, working together with our LFAs and regions, so that they can go and inspect and say, no, this one qualifies, this one does not qualify. Then from there we'll start having a database for all our academies.
Because I was going to ask that most of or some of these academies, especially which are found in the urban areas, come across as some money-making schemes now.
Look, it has been proven. There are programs which were run by a TV where it investigated that the kids have been molested, the kids are not taken to school, the kids are not fed properly. At some point, there were kids who were kept in a hostel in a very worrying circumstance. It was now also used as a way of human trafficking, because in Pretoria, we once got involved where we needed to close because someone was getting young kids from Ghana, closing them and pretending as if he has school which was not registered, and their living conditions were just very sad. So that's why as the association we keep on saying, together working with our communities who report these dodgy ones which are there for money, we'll engage our security agencies and ensure that they are closed.
Just going back to the issue of coaching and the standards that we're talking about and what would require, is it right that CEO, because in terms of as much as because of the curriculum issue we have stopped training, but SAFA has got an adequate number of coaches who have been trained at CAF A, CAF B, CAF C. Is it right that at the top level we have a coach who's got a D license?
Look, I think it is not, but of course each and every case has to be dealt with its own merits. You cannot, of course, punish a team because they decided we needed to empower Velile and make him a coach. And they decide this year. Velile has been there with them in the system. So what then becomes their immediate need is to how do we empower him further? Because now there is no longer way of there is no way of dodging it. because CAF is strict with it. So you wake up and say, no, Velile, it's fine. He is a good coach. He has been an assistant, or he has been a loyal servant of the club. He has coached our juniors. So now we want to promote him. What is the next step? Is to empower him with education. So you cannot then say, let me punish this coach who was promoted yesterday. But of course, it is now becoming paramount that clubs which engage coaches must in a way ensure that the coaches are academically qualified so that they can deliver the best product. It's important, for us to speak about Vision 2022, it means performing starting from there. We are in fact up in the gear to say, look, we have just qualified for these tournaments. We got kicked out in the first round. So the mandate keeps on increasing to say, now that we have seen that we can qualify. Where do we want to go? Do we want a Banyana which goes to World Cup and get kicked on the first round and we celebrate? No, that's not what we want. Do we need a Bafana which qualifies for AFCON, beat Egypt at its own ground and lose to Nigeria and get kicked out? No. We need to go all the way. We need the people we need the players to repeat the heroics of the 1994 class where they won this AFCON. It's doable. It's just for us to give them support. So it is important for each and every national team to qualify, and not only qualify to participate. They must qualify and go and challenge. So what we see with under 17 is a Vision 2022 in motion. And we will be happy if we are coming to the conclusion of Vision 2022 with clubs not only be kicked out, with one trophy at least from the international tournament. We'll then be saying these are clear results of the Vision 2022.
Because that's what I was going to look at, that for you, you are the person now who has to maybe even stop talking about Vision 2022, because your vision now goes beyond 2022 to say, we've been talking about Vision 2022, but from you, CEO, what should we be anticipating now? Because Vision 2022 is something from 2013 or 2012. So looking beyond it, I'm happy that you started that conversation, but looking beyond it, because it's just a year from now.
Look, Velil, one, we need to understand the industry we are in. And if we understand it, we will then get things right. The Vision 2022 is not a wishful thinking or a dream of someone. It's a policy framework of the association which says, how do we transform our administration? Ever since taking over this position, I think I've put more emphasis on it to say, how do we transform it? And I've then designed a new organogram which will speak to the needs, because for me, having been from membership affairs, and I'm happy when I look at the playoffs of ABC Motsepe, I'm more excited because we have managed to transfer those skills. What people have been saying is not doable. You need 50 people, you need 15 people from head office to go to a region and deliver it did not happen here. I only had one person from this office going to work with people from regions, people from provinces to run the successful ABC Motsepe tournament. And I want to see that done across board. That when Bafana plays, you don't get people from head office getting down there. I want real legacy. I need empowerment of our regional people. I want empowerment of our provincial structures. LFA members, they must not become spectators and enjoy to get VIP tickets. They need to be participants in organizations' events. And I'm saying, I'm happy. That's one. But still, it speaks to Vision 2022. Remember, as a policy framework, you say, I want an international standard. I want us to prepare to have a world-class administration. World-class administration is a selfless one which empowers people even on the ground. So I'm happy personally with that, because even from the position I was holding of membership affairs, I've heard the cries, the outcry there of saying we are not involved, we are not. I'm answering that. We've started well.
And some of these people would have been part also of delivering during the World Cup, the previous AFCONs.
Exactly. You have a lot of talent down there. So this office should not be seen as the people who have monopolized running of football. We need to work with those people. That I've achieved, and I'm happy, and I will keep on doing it to ensure that everyone is touched across all boards. Then 2, Vision 2022 has given a mandate. You cannot then say because they've given me this CEO position, I must look beyond what this leadership is looking at. You must still confine yourself within Vision 2022, but you must say, Vision 2022 had said we must comply, we must qualify for major tournaments, we must be a big player in the major tournaments. Then we have done so. It's only women under 20 which has not been to a World Cup, and I think if it was not of COVID, they were going to qualify. So one as a immediate mandate is to ensure that you complete the puzzle first. If women under 20 qualifying for the World Cup, you know that all your juniors have qualified. Then what is the next step? The next step is the under 23 men are going to Olympics. We want them to do better than they've done last time. Banyana, we need you to qualify for the World Cup and go beyond the first round. Under 17s, you've been to a World Cup. What are the lessons taken? Lessons learned. Go beyond the first round. You see, for everyone to go beyond the first round, it will be an achievement, because currently we have all our teams knocked out in the first stage. So if you have a team which goes to quarterfinals, if you have a junior teams which goes to the final, that will be a huge thing. But you don't have to look at it as your own pilot project. You have a policy which guides you, which the policy makers, because the NEC are policy makers, they've set up and say by 2022 we want to achieve this. And if one is here beyond Vision 2022, then you will start thinking beyond that. But of course, what you are saying, we have seen the benefits of Vision 2022. To some extent, we have seen qualifications. And are we saying beyond, even if it's within Vision 2022, what more do we need? We need under 23s to perform. We need all our national teams which qualifies to pass the first round stages. We need Bafana to go beyond quarterfinals in the AFCON. We want them to qualify for the World Cup, because they've not qualified previously. So those are the things which becomes your immediate mandate requirements, and administratively is to support the teams and ensure that things are done in a proper way. And also, don't forget the very same issue you're talking about, coaches. We are saying we have produced around 20,000 coaches. Then you need to start making now and taking stock and say, out of this 20,000, which qualifications do they have? What do we need as a country? How are we going to be able to deliver the required levels which CAF requires? So those are the continuous mandate. Others, yes, we are saying targets for 2020, but it does not mean that they expire in 2022. Beyond 2022 is to do more and more and more, but it is important that the policy framework set you targets. You reach those targets before you dream of the new targets.
Correct. And you will agree with me, especially for these national teams which are outside the senior football, which are mainly guided by international weeks. Central to their success becomes regular national camps to make them ready, and I think that also requires a clear support from your office in terms of adequate camps for them to always be ready, and not just be ready pre-tournament.
Exactly. No, COVID produced a unique situation, and I know the first person I met with was the acting technical director to say, I need to meet with all national coaches and hear their plans. And they gave plans, because we must not behave like the successor, the people who were here before were not giving them that support. Of course it was, but due to COVID having put a pause on football activities, we need a plan which will say, how do we check the level? Because every coach said, I gave them individual programs, but I'm not certain if they are following it. And that's why you saw us being the busiest. We had camps for almost all national teams. And all national team coaches are now certain of where is the standard of players. And of course, it was a blessing in disguise that we have SAFA. Majority of our teams are participating there. And we can gauge to say where exactly are we? What do we need to do to ensure that we improve? And look at Banyana, for instance. The Banyana players who were there are not the Banyana players who are overseas. We left overseas. The coach decided to give others a chance and say, let me give the local ones a chance. And you have seen how they performed. You have players who are already now a big name out of that COSAF. And what does it do? It tells you have a great succession plan. Coach Des still has people who support, who she can rely on. And that also put the senior Banyana players not to sleep in their laurel. Because now it says to them, there is a chance that your position may be taken whether you're playing overseas or not. And this is part of Vision 2022 in action. This is part of saying to you the association is doing well in terms of women's football. Because if you can manage to get new talent, put it together and go and compete and win with that team, without your overseas-based players, we know that Banyana are the many exports, is now the biggest exporter of football, Banyana players. They get chance overseas, you calculate numbers. They are there, but what we also pride ourselves as the association is, even in terms of academic qualifications, the Banyana, 90% of our Banyana team has degrees, diplomas. So it shows that HPC center we have, where we started them with education, it is yielding a very good fruits, and we must continue empowering them. We must continue supporting women football. We must, of course, as you say, we must continue giving support to all our national teams to ensure that at all times our players are ready to compete.
In fact, I saw a story where the captain of Bantwana, the under 17 recently, that she's headed for Spain, and I saw today Leandra Smida, she's headed to what I consider to be the top women's league in the world, in Sweden. So it talks to what you're talking about in terms of exporting.
Exactly, and these are just a part of showing you the serious work the association has put in women football. I mean, you have a player who's playing for AC Milan. You have players in Spain. And the fact that we continue to export says much about our football programs for women.
At the same time, the success means that you are creating another monster, because now everyone is calling for SAFA to implement equal pay for Banyana and Bafana players.
Look, first, Velile, I think most of the time as a country, we just want to raise and talk. When Banyana qualified for the World Cup, there is a certain insurance company which came and said, no, we want to sponsor Banyana. And you go to them, they offer you peanuts. They say, no, we'll give you this. Not a sponsorship, it's a donation. We need to separate the two. But coming back to the topic, SAFA has committed itself, and I'm sure you've heard the president had said it. That's what we want to see as a real empowerment of football, women football. Allowances in terms of camps, we give them equal money. You must know in the past it was not the same way. But we are currently giving Banyana the allowances the same way we give Bafana. And we are saying for salaries, it should also be the responsibility of the commercial and the business people. Invest in women football. That's our message out there. Invest in women football so that we can ensure that we improve the salaries of these players. The association depends solely on sponsorships. Bafana will get those bonuses, those allowances, because they have a sponsor. We know that for a long time we have relied on a Sasol sponsorship. And we are grateful to Sasol, because that sponsorship is for the league and for the national team. But it does not allow us at this moment to pay equal salaries. But we continue. We are not going to be deterred. We are not going to lose hope that we are going to get a sponsor which will make a further contribution and ensure that we compensate these players. While there is an issue of saying no, for COSAFA these players are not going to be paid. And we would like to state categorically that that is neither there. People are just creating their own stories. Because even last time after Banyana has won, there is a man which Sasol has put forward, and the SAFA has put the equal amount, and will go the same route.
And I think COSAFA pays $500,000.
Yes, so we're gonna go the same route. The ladies are going to be rewarded for this good performance, but we continue with our call for sponsors to say here is a product, it's viable, they are winning, they are contributing. We must now start putting action into our ways and invest in this product.
There's always been, and I've seen other teams cry that the issue of the development fee maybe here at home was not implemented properly. The amateur clubs which develop these players would hardly be rewarded. Some clubs would complain that they're just being offered balls and cones, you know. But the creation of SAFA by the organization, I remember you and also FIFA even driving it, I think before COVID, to say this is a project that they are really going to be focusing on now. Are we going to start to see immediate change from now?
Of course, we're going to see the immediate change. Remember that we're speaking about regulations here. It's unfortunate that some of our clubs did not know how to go about getting what is due to them. Others got what is due to them. Where they had disagreement, they came to our dispute resolution committee and they were reimbursed accordingly. Remember that the regulation from FIFA says for education and training, the club which has contributed, all clubs which have contributed to the upbringing of a player in terms of education and training, up until that player sign a first contract, they are entitled to compensation. Beyond that, when the player is above 21 and he signs, you are also entitled to some solidarity fund. Those are well defined. And we are happy that FIFA, through the clearinghouse of FIFA, have now introduced, even said to the league, that the registration system must be one. That will ensure that a Velilem Bully does not have a FIFA number for amateur league and a FIFA number for the professional. So with the integration of the systems of registration, when you have one FIFA number, it goes and it informs you that in terms of development, Velile was here and there, and this is the amount due in terms. That system of myself reports and calculate to you and tell you that Velile, if Velile signs a first professional contract, this is how much you are entitled to. So that will kill this exploitation, because we agree that that exploitation has been there. But the FIFA clearinghouse has made our lives very much easier, because now when you register with myself, you get a FIFA number. That number, you carry it up until you retire. So when you move from one league to the other, it tells you Velile is now at this amount, Velile is now at this amount, up until you reach where they want.
So is this the current one of the priority matters currently?
Look, it is a priority matter, and like I said, it's implemented now. The PSL players will have FIFA number. The SAFA league players will have the FIFA number, and that number, it's a unique number which will ensure that we trace, because most of the time you find that a club says I've trained Velile, but they have nothing to show. Administratively, they cannot give you evidence, and Velile, because it's influenced by the agent, he says no, I only played for a week here. Then you don't have anything to be. So I think this SAFA program will assist clubs.
So this is from this window, that's what you are working on?
Yes, it has started.
Are we regulating the intermediaries enough in the country?
Look, in the country, we must be honest to say the court action which they brought, and later the involvement of the Competitions Commission, have put some breaks on it, because first we need Competitions Commission to finalize the matter with agents. We have seen some of them pleading guilty and paying fine, so that we ensure that whatever they charge, because they are complaining to say the amount as put by FIFA is too little. But of course we need them not also to exploit both clubs and players. So it's a process which will be regulated once we are done with these cases, which are pending on different forums. But the regulatory framework is there, and I'm sure you've seen, if you are a reader like me, that FIFA is also considering going back to agents, dealing away with intermediaries. It just shows you that it's not only the South African thing. It's a worldwide revolution, and we need to ensure that everyone get what is rightfully due to him. On your first issue of saying people think that they will be regulated by the league, and maybe that the handbook of the league makes it clear where intermediaries falls, and it's not within the league, it's within the FA.
Mm-hmm. And for me, it becomes very interesting now. If FIFA is contemplating, like we've seen, contemplating going back to similar to the old system, it brings the power and also maybe even the control back to the FA.
Look, the power and control has always been there. It has always been there. And I think maybe FIFA had seen that the fact that people are no longer writing exams, tomorrow you have a Velile who you have not even tested, who is an intermediary. By going back to that, if it goes back to that old format, then the association does not lose control, because it controls when the tests are written, who has passed it publicizes, so people knows who are the accredited agents. Unlike now everyone is an intermediary, whether they understand that business or not, and most of them, unfortunately, they end up putting the future of players at huge risk.
All these things that we're talking about and what you hope to achieve also have to do with the revenue as well. And one looks at, when you talk about revenue generation, you talk about the issues like the difficulties of my company. One of your sponsors, SAA, even though it was a value in kind, but I can imagine now it's affecting you when you have to fly around because they're not in operation. How difficult has been this sponsorship space, and also has this maybe even led to you to think outside of the box of the transformation of the organization towards other avenues which can help you to derive income from?
Really, I think we must not be hard on ourselves as the association. That space is not as bad as we are told it is. When I first took over, I was told, that space is one of the most difficult space. I think it just needs one organizational discipline. Leaders of the organization needs to know that their actions speaks to the reputation of the association. So it tells you that immediately you need to have disciplined board members. You need to have disciplined members across board, because they carry this brand SAFA. Wherever you go, they say to you, but hey, what is written about SAFA on the newspapers? And it comes from us as football people, so we need to deal with that notion first. 2, we need to unpack the properties we have. For instance, you are talking about the SABC as a broadcaster. The first question is, are we getting enough? Can't we go to the pay channel? And all those things needs engagements. We'll start those engagements and say to them, as the pay channel, everyone is now making noise about women football. The pay channel, which is SuperSport in this country, they give money to different sporting codes. In football, they give it to professional wing. Why not women football? Those are the debates which, as a nation which is concerned about women, we must not be concerned about women football to blame SAFA. We must then start asking key questions to all, even broadcasters, pay channel, SuperSport, what are you doing for women? If you can do for women in rugby, why not about women in football? Those are the kind of questions we need to ask. When you ask them, they say you're blackmailing the market, but it's the real core issues. So we need to reposition ourselves and speak to the market. we have seen that is not doom and gloom. The Showmax has came on board as the revenue sponsor. It's a new revenue. It's a new revenue because outsurance was no longer there. So it's a new revenue. And there are one or two people who are talking to about women football, and we are positive that soon we will be announcing a sponsor. We are.
What makes it so positive? Because we've been hearing about that one even before you got into this position.
No, I'm sure you are talking about those which were collapsing, the Tebogo and collapse. But with the ones which I've engaged with, I'm more positive because it's not people who were engaged in the past. These are the people which we have started fresh negotiations, and one believes that with the engagement we have, with sponsors you only remain positive. You don't need to blame and say, hey, people have been saying we are launching, because a lot of things happen in the pipeline. First, we need to also understand that by saying you need a sponsor, you don't need a donor, you need a sponsor. Because most people will say, no, but I want to sponsor. When you get into details, they want to give you 2 million for a property which is worth 40 million. Then that is no longer a sponsorship. So we need to get into that market with that mentality, that we need to get partners, we sell rights to them, we service their contracts and ensure that the relationship keeps on growing. But it's not as difficult, it's not doom and gloom. Yes, our economic environment is not the safest, but we need to continuously engage. And we are positive that something will come out of our efforts.